Hello, my name is Mike Thompson. I'm a co-author of the book Business Diagnostics, 3rd edition, with Richard Mimick and Terry Rakwalski. I'm also an associate professor at Royal Roads University. I teach in the MBA program there. Royal Roads University is based in Victoria, BC, Canada. And today I'd like to talk about a really important topic that I believe is quite critical to the average business owner who is working hard to generate revenues, increase profitability, and grow their business. The topic I wish to talk about is the whole issue of business succession and business transition. I prefer the word transition because it more aptly describes the process that is going on with today's business owner. And when I mention today's business owner, I'm talking about the demographic, the boomer generation that was born in 1948 up to 1963. So really a 15+ year cohort, and that cohort, that generation, is now starting to think about retiring. And of course, if you run a business, it's not as simple as just turning out the lights and moving off and playing golf. It's a very complex process. And so my colleagues and I have done a fair bit of research around this, and I want to talk a bit about how important that is and a solution we believe we've come up with in terms of a model, understandable model, that could be useful to, again, today's business owner. Bit of context, there's probably about $2 trillion worth of business assets changing hands within that boomer generation, within that window of time, the next 14, 15 years. The sad part is that when a survey was done by CIBC World Markets, only about 60% of business owners had any clear idea that there might be some sort of need to formulate some form of succession plan. So there's clearly a big gap. And so really I kind of like to compare this looming demographic challenge as really almost a large black cloud or a tsunami coming at us. And I really believe that today's business owner needs to have a plan. They need to have a strategy to overcome this. So I've done a fair bit of research talking to professionals and business owners over the last couple of years. I put together a model which I call the Enterprise Transition Plan. And so this plan essentially has 3 components. I'd like to describe those to you very quickly. The first component is a situation assessment. The second component is a review of different pathways that a business owner could take. And the third component is really pulling it all together into a solid, actionable plan. So let's start talking about the first stage, which is the situation assessment. That really consists of 4 components, which I think are really important. And this is about taking the high ground and making sure that you've got a good feel for your business, situation, and your ability to take some really solid steps moving forward into a transition. So this assessment stage, the first piece that you need to really take some time to work through is to understand who your key advisors are. And they can be either internal, your colleagues, your subordinates, your fellow members of the C-suite, the CFO, the Chief Operating Officer. Internal resources, they need to be on side with your plans. Also, you need some great external resources like your CPA, perhaps your commercial banker. You may have a management consultant that you would use, and certainly perhaps a personal financial advisor. So you need to have those key advisory resources detailed, documented, and on side as you start the journey. The second piece of the puzzle in the situation assessment is to complete a detailed personal financial evaluation. And this is where the personal financial advisor would come in. You've got to sit down with he or she and really understand your own family situation, your net worth, your assets, your liabilities, understand the income, get a feel for what you wish to achieve in terms of income when you're retired, what are the strategies around family trusts. All kinds of really important questions have to be understood on a personal basis. The third element to the situation assessment is really completing what we call a size up. And essentially what you have to do is understand the company's external and internal environment. The external environment are large forces at play politically, sociologically, technology, economically. Also understanding the industry competitive environment. The internal factors involve a review of finance, marketing, HR, technology, operations, understanding those key elements of your business. When you've done that, you need to figure out your current growth patterns and your growth trajectory. And then finally, you need at this stage, even though it's really early on, you need to figure out or have some fix on what the business value is. What's your business worth? And again, your CPA, your accountant will have some insights around that, but it's really important to have a bit of a ballpark as to what your business is worth, just to ensure that you're not being unrealistic at this early stage. And the fourth component of the situation assessment is doing a change readiness review. And that involves really being aware of external factors again, the market's response to a change in business, how that will impact you. And internally, what are the impacts on your culture? What are the impacts on the management, leadership, and also the employees of the firm as well there too. So the situation assessment is really taking high ground and understanding where you are right now. By taking the high ground and working through those four areas, you'll be well equipped to move on to the next stage, stage 2, which involves looking at the different transition pathways. And so we've come up with 5. So the first one is a little tongue-in-cheek, but I would characterize it this way. The first pathway we have laid out as doing nothing and praying. And essentially the do nothing and pray strategy, it may sound a little facetious, but actually a lot of people sadly are in that state where they're just hoping that something serendipitously may happen, may turn up, there'll be a buyer out there at a trade show, and all of a sudden you've sold a business and you're retired and life is good. Sadly, it doesn't happen that way. And so the danger with this strategy is that you may be forced to wind down by losing sight of the ball, and perhaps creditors may be applying pressure on you, or you may just go into a quiet voluntary wind down and close the doors in 2 years' time. And sadly, again, that's happening across North America. Many companies are quietly closing their doors, and they're not extracting the value that should be due to them. There's no extraction of enterprise value. They merely sell off the assets, pay off the liabilities, and take the cash, pay some tax on that, and then they're done. But it's a pretty sad way to really culminate a long 30 or 40 year endeavor to build a business. So doing nothing and pray is the first pathway which you absolutely want to avoid, and you don't want to be there at all. The second pathway involves an internal sale. You may have family members who might want to buy into the business. You may also have a management team or an employee team that might be interested in doing an MBO or an EBO, a management buyout or an employee buyout. The employee situation is kind of rare. Often happens when maybe there has been a large operation, maybe a steel mill or a large plant that has maybe shut down and the employees are trying to revive it. What I'm seeing more is the MBO model, where there's a team of managers that do wish and are interested in taking over the reins of the company, and they put their own resources towards the purchase price. There's also a large element of bank financing, mezzanine financing, and then often the owner will take back some financing as well. And those three components will actually make the deal work. And so you should be considering whether an MBO might be viable, and if there's family members, is there viability around their ability to take over the reins as well there too. The third pathway is finding external buyers, and there are really three opportunities there. The first one is to see if you can find a strategic buyer. You'll probably need an M&A firm, a merger and acquisitions firm, a consulting firm to help you with this. Your CPA may have some good ideas around that kind of support for you. The best way to go with a strategic buyer is obviously to cast a wide net. The value of a strategic purchase is that you do extract enterprise value. You'll sell for a certain multiple above EBITDA, and if the process goes really well, you'll have a successful sale and a great outcome. But it's a complex process, takes a long time, and you absolutely need really professional resources to guide you through that. The second component of an external sale is the financial buyer. And the financial buyer, tongue-in-cheek again, they're not shark-like. In fact, the days are really kind of gone when players were coming in to just really run the company into the ground and pull out as much value and then move on. What I'm finding is that financial buyers are becoming very strategic as well in their interest, but they certainly have a large interest, more of a focus on the financial rate of return elements to the deal versus perhaps the strategic buyer who is looking for a 1 + 1 = 3. And the third component of the external sale is there may be a prelude move here where you actually do a merger with another firm, and then you position yourself for sale at that point in time. The fourth area, which is I think a very interesting one, is to keep growing and then sell. And so by keeping and growing and selling, there are really two components of that. One is to hire an outside CEO to replace you. It's a hired gun strategy. You move to a board position, you hire an outside CEO who has the capability to keep driving the company forward there, and then you find an opportunity to see if there would be a strategic or financial buying opportunity out there. The other option is to recruit from within and to choose your select a CEO or managing director from your existing team of senior managers, promote that person, and then he or she will run the operation, and again you move upstairs to a board of directors seat. The other piece that really ties into both those, okay, is the importance though of getting a good fix on your growth strategies as well there too. But this interim step can often be a good way to proceed. And the final one is what we call harvesting. You may have looked at different areas and you realize that time is finite. There's not really a lot of internal opportunities to find successors, to groom CEOs, either externally or internally. And so you just decide essentially to harvest cash flow over, say, a finite period of time, 2 or 3 years. You minimize your costs, and then you make a decision to wind the business down. But it's a deliberate strategy where you feel you've got 2 or 3 years of runway where you can still pull cash out of the business, putting it in your hands, and then hopefully optimizing your own personal retirement strategies. So those are the 5 transition pathways. What we've found again with our research is that often companies will use 2 in parallel. Sometimes they'll be working on the grow and sell strategy and they will have hired from within a new CEO, and at the same time they're quietly also looking for an outside buyer, either strategic or financial. So that's stage 2. Stage 3 is really pulling it all together. And this is where again you need your key advisory resources, you need your CPA, you'll need a team of people to work with you. You've decided on your transition pathways, and now it's time to go ahead and execute. And so a big piece of that puzzle is then to get a more formalized valuation. You'll need to talk to your CPA. You may need the services of a CBV, a Chartered Business Valuator, to come in and do a definitive, detailed valuation of your company. You wouldn't sell your house without having a detailed valuation on the house, and certainly you wouldn't sell your business under the same circumstances as well. Part of the planning process then, of course, is to have the valuation done. It's to figure out the best pathways for you, and then you put down timelines, you put down actions around that. You have a communications plan with your staff as to how you handle that piece of the puzzle as well there too, and then you spend some time over, say, a 6-month or 12-month period carefully implementing and executing the plan, and that is stage 3. So in summary, that is really the solution we've come up with in terms of meeting this big looming demographic challenge. We believe the enterprise transition plan is a simple, effective model. It's in 3 stages, it's easy to understand, it takes time and effort, but we really believe that if it's done properly, it will add an awful lot of value to your business, and it will take away a lot of headaches and hopefully usher in a nice transition into a really good retirement. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.